thank you and Celebrate Life for inviting me to speak today. Thank you all for being here today. And thank you, Dee Dee. That was such a beautiful meditation. And thank you for guiding us to such a beautiful presence in the space of love. Thank you. So I hope you all had a happy, safe Thanksgiving in whatever way you celebrated. However you did spend the day, I know all of us are very grateful for the blessings in our lives, even during these times, and that we get to have these connections with one another every week and with spirit. So it's been well over 8 months now since we've been living our lives in response to this virus. And many of us have had quite a bit of time for reflection and to adjust our daily routines and our daily lives. And as Americans, we finally made it past the November 3rd date of our presidential election. But since then, I've been hearing the word transition, referring specifically to the transition of power after an election. And a peaceful transition of power is part of our democracy. But like many of the transitions that we experience, our usual norms aren't quite so normal these days. So what is transition? Our dictionary defines transition as movement or passage from one state to another. This morning, we had a beautiful transition from one state to another with that lovely meditation. And often we're not very aware of the process of transition if it's gradual, such as when we go from childhood to being an adult. It's pretty gradual, just marked by our yearly birthdays. But perhaps you, like me, have the experience where certain words have a very powerful impact to get your attention. And the word transition has just been really kind of initiating something inside me to contemplate on. As a pastor, I try to keep an open mind and not focus on politics. But I know we are all grateful that our spiritualist pioneers took very active social justice and responsibility stances. They were the abolitionists, the suffragettes, the free thinkers. And in 1992, at our 100th National Convention, the delegates who attended that represented their home churches put forth a social policy statement, and they described it as being published to the world not to bind the conscience of any individual, but to address the social conditions of society and the world and express their consensus. So the social policy statements covered topics like the freedom of religious thought and expression, and they took stances on equal rights, promoting and providing environments that were free of all discrimination based on race, color, national origin, disability, age, or sexual orientation. Our social policy statements promote justice for all and life and death with dignity, and they took a stance against capital punishment and focusing on personal choice and individual responsibility for making informed choice, they call it. So when the transitions in our lives are gradual, it's easier for us to adapt. But sometimes transitions occur very suddenly, very intensely. For example, disasters such as floods or earthquakes. And for many of us, both in Northern California and in Southern California, we've experienced wildfires, severe wildfires that caused evacuations and people still transitioning to the losses they incurred. When severe events like those occur, we are called to navigate through those transitions. And that is seeming to be the situation with the global pandemic that we are experiencing. One of the most intense transitions that I think we can experience, in my opinion, is giving birth. And for those of you who have given birth yourselves or have witnessed the birth process, you're aware of how powerful that transition is. The actual word of transition is the word given to the It defines the final phase of the first stage of labor. And this is this phase where the mother's body makes an actual physical shift so that the baby can begin the descent through the birth canal. And it doesn't really matter if you've taken preparation classes or breathing classes or relaxation preparation, which are all wonderful to prepare. But it is an intense and very personal experience that really no amount of preparation can accurately describe. Our Spiritualist manual defines transition as the passage or change from one stage, or place to another. It's movement, development, evolution from one form, one stage or style to another. It's the process of passing through or passing over. And as spiritualists, you often hear us use the word transition to describe when a person has passed from life here on the physical to life in spirit. We say that one makes their transition to the spirit world after the change called death. So humanity across the globe right now is experiencing the transition of navigating through this time of this pandemic. Almost every aspect of our lives have been impacted physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, individually, socially, globally, our politics, our economics, the workplace, the food and shelter challenges, and the enormous impact on all of the frontline workers, healthcare workers, caretakers. And in this country, as in other countries, we're in a transitional period of very intense energy, not only because of the pandemic, but because of how we view the situations. And there is divisiveness that has been affecting our family relationships and our friendships. No one's been left untouched. However, we know that these are also intense and magnificent opportunities for us to grow and learn and make choices in how we are going to decide how we're going to move forward. As Dee Dee put so beautifully in her meditation today, we do have free choice. We have free will of how we see events that occur. But how are we going to bring unity to our divided country? And I wonder, how do we find a way for our human family members to come together so that we can act in a way that moves us connected, unified, perhaps in a harmonious way? Even when we consider the simple choice action of wearing a mask, it's brought up it's pushed a lot of buttons for folks. And I think I've talked about this before, so I don't want to repeat myself, but I kind of see it like wearing a seatbelt. We put on our seatbelt when we go in the car. It doesn't always protect every situation, but it does prepare us for an impact or for accidents. And I know it's a law now, but I don't believe there was that much pushback about putting our seatbelts on. It's just helping us to adapt and apply nature's physical law of gravity, the law of motion, and a way to keep us safe and to take that action to do that. So I guess one of the reasons is that some folks perceive that as an infringement on personal freedom. We do notice that there are divisions in how we perceive truth. And there are even folks who still do not believe that the virus we are experiencing is actually real. So as we move through this time, and the vaccinations that are forthcoming, and issues will probably arise with that as well, we do need to continue to be mindful of how we proceed and move forward together while we are in this very intense time on our earth. With regards to political divisions in America, perhaps we can look to December in a couple weeks when the Electoral College meets, and inauguration date of January 20th to hopefully end the transition period and bring clarity in that area. And even if we don't always feel a sense of togetherness as humans, as spirits, we understand and know that we are all connected, we're all one, and that the choices we make indeed have far-reaching consequences. Sometimes it feels like things have just stood still these past months. Many of us have stayed home, been hunkered down, just going to the grocery store or necessary appointments, or hopefully getting a little bit of treasured time outdoors or doing an activity we enjoy. But we are actually never at a standstill or in a static state, because change always occurs. It's the constant. As stated in our Morris Pratt course workbook, Spiritualism, A Religion of Happiness, which is based on the H. Gordon Burroughs book, Becoming a Spiritualist, one of the lessons discusses that feeling of being at a standstill. And it quotes, "There is nothing true but continual change, and we are constantly progressing, for there is no standstill. To find happiness, we must adjust ourselves to meet the ever-present changes going on within and about us. We have to continue to look for the truth and unfold that higher wisdom within ourselves." We know that we all affirm natural law, and that we're aware of the law of continuity, the law of cycles. And we've actually been through 3 of our Earth seasons since we've been sequestered at home: the spring equinox, the summer solstice in June, the autumnal equinox in September, and soon we're getting ready on December 21st for the winter solstice. So when I've been thinking about transition and all these thoughts, I've been asking Spirit to help me with words or image that could help me express a cohesive way to help me understand how possibly, when there's such division, we can come together with our fellow citizens. We had our election, and the positive outcome was that so many people in record numbers came out to express their right to vote. But that vote also revealed a lot of this really huge division amongst people's thinking. So how are we going to get these divided forces together and have a common way of moving forward in a positive way? Then last week, I came upon an article that was describing a natural phenomenal event that's going to take place on December 21st at the winter solstice. Our principle 2 says, we believe that the phenomena of nature, both physical and spiritual, are the expression of infinite intelligence, meaning that divine intelligence expresses through nature. And the article I came upon was from SciTech Daily, and it was entitled, "Don't Miss It. Jupiter, Saturn will look like double planet for the first time since the Middle Ages." Perhaps many of you have read articles about this upcoming event. And astronomer Patrick Hartigan of Rice University describes that just after sunset on the eve of December 21st, alignments, which are normally rare, maybe once in 20 years, will be exceedingly rare this year, because these 2 planets, Jupiter and Saturn, are going to appear closer than they have appeared since March 4th of 1226. So that's almost 800 years ago. They're going to appear very close in this planetary conjunction. And Mr. Hartigan goes on to say that Jupiter and Saturn will appear like a double planet because they'll just have 0.1 degrees apart. So this image made me think of it as an example of the energy of 2 powerful forces or entities coming closer together. This won't happen again till 2080, and then after that, not till the year 2400. So it's quite a huge natural event. And we know that we make our own happiness or unhappiness, and each of us, consciously or unconsciously, seeks harmony within us. And sometimes we're aware when we awaken to our higher spiritual natures, when we give it the time to make that connection, but we're not always aware. For those of you who are familiar with the teachings of White Eagle, whose spirit communicated through the mediumship of British spiritualist Grace Cook, the truths and wisdoms are expressed throughout our spiritualist philosophy. The spirit of White Eagle says, remember that the purpose of your life is to grow first of all in your self-consciousness, then in group consciousness, and then consciousness of the whole brotherhood and sisterhood of life, so that we all realize how precious our lives are. And understanding that our lives continue gives us even more motivation to take responsibility to make this earthly life the best we can, to do our best, as was beautifully stated in one of the 4 agreements, to do our best. So back again to my pondering, how do we bridge the differences that we've been experiencing? How can we go from our fellow human grievances to the state of gratitude, knowing that we are all connected with one another through love? We have learned how to make conscious efforts in connecting with our loved ones in spirit. Sometimes it seems easier to communicate with our spirit loved ones than with one another. And that sometimes when we have differences and don't agree, it causes us to be in a state of grievance, blame, and anger. And I'm not talking about grief here. Grief is a very natural healing process that all experience with loss and sadness. And we pray for the countless people who are grieving at this time. But I'm speaking of those grievances for which we can use our free will to take responsibility. When we remain in a constant state of grievance, it's very disempowering, and the vibration is a low one, and it might call us to uplift our vibration, to keep it higher so we can keep in balance each day. So when we notice those grievances kind of eating away at us, they can be a signal for us to consider perhaps making a different choice or a different perception in how we're viewing something. We're so fortunate and blessed to share our gratitude each week at the services here. It does shift that vibration. And we can shift our vibration in our individual and daily practices, whether it's attuning to spirit, doing a meditation, a walking meditation, saying a prayer, or participating in an activity that lifts your vibration. And I feel very blessed and very honored to have spoken with so many of you who've so creatively, so thoughtfully gone through your own personal grief and grievances with courage, with inspiration, and uplifting others as you do so. There are many opportunities available, even while we're home. We're very blessed with the gift of the technologies that, even if we are a little resistant to learning, can really help us expand and learn and grow, because it is in the learning and the growing that we can discover new ways to cope, to navigate, and go through our experiences creatively. As we move towards the Christmas holiday, our thoughts often go toward goodwill and joy and peace toward all manifestations of infinite intelligence. Our hymn, Let There Be Peace on Earth, says, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. That means peace begins within each of us. So we have to start with our own perceptions for our inner growth, our desire for awareness and to uplift one another, to practice the golden rule and expand our connection with spirit and one another. Quoting again from White Eagle, he said, when you are seeking communion with the higher world and with visitors from that world, be very still. This will be accomplished by the strengthening of your spirit, the growth of the divine mind in you, the radiation from your heart of goodwill and peace, a peace which takes you through the day placidly, even joyously, a peace which even in the midst of spiritual conflict remains undisturbed. And this is what it is meant by being peaceful, by living peacefully. End quote. As spiritualists, we endeavor to seek truth, understand right thinking, right acting, right living, and we seek to live in harmony here and now. When we seek to understand truth, that is when we can apply it in our everyday lives. Every person is on their own pathway to the truth. So the truth that we may individually understand might not necessarily be truth for another. And our perception of truth and what is truthful is often where we have our strongest differences with other folks. So knowing that we are so divided in some of our thinking, we can acknowledge our free will, and the least we can do is pray for the highest and best for all when we don't understand how someone else is thinking. It is said, quote, a true spiritualist is one who not only takes personal responsibility, but works to uplift others. None of us wants to see others suffer or be in misery. We know how to bridge the realm with spirit. We strive for that connection because we understand that even those who are in spirit at a higher vibration than ours, because we are in earthly bodies, we are able to blend with that spirit realm because of their efforts to come to our vibration and our efforts to rise our vibrations. So maybe with that knowledge, we can start applying it into our human lives to help us bridge our human differences, remembering that we are all spirit now and always. It is possible. So I ask you to just join with me for a moment to do a little visualization, just a short one. If you'll just close your eyes for a moment and just let your imagination guide you. And just imagine you're walking on a pathway. It could be somewhere outdoors you love or something you make up. But just imagine walking along and you notice there's a stream next to you. It runs parallel to your path. And you're walking along, and on the other side of that stream, you become very aware of the energy of beings who have completely different thinking and different ideas of the truth than you do. But just like you, they're walking on their path, the other side of the stream. And just imagine now you're walking along, you on one side of the stream and the beings, human beings, just like you, but with differences, walking along on the other side of the stream. Both of you aware of each other across the stream. And you notice just up ahead, just slightly in the distance, is a bridge. It's a bridge over the stream, extending from one side, the side that you are on, over to the other side of the stream. And imagine now getting closer. Notice how the bridge looks. Maybe let spirit help you create in your imagination this bridge that connects the two sides divided by the stream. And you get closer now. Imagine maybe even taking a few steps on the bridge over the stream of division. Take as many steps as are comfortable. And you feel and notice the energy of a being on the other side who gently approaches their side of the bridge. Just be aware of the energy. All okay. Spirit can help you understand. Just be in the moment. A moment of noticing, being aware. Differences, but it is okay. The beginnings of steps on this bridge, a bridge of unity, tolerance, understanding that both sides are seeking harmony and peace and healing. And just feel in your most appropriate way the experience. Aware of the differences, but with a sense of a peacefulness that can continue to grow with new awareness, new understanding. And now make your return to your physical presence and open your eyes whenever you feel ready. As the Christmas holidays approach, let us be aware of our own inner light, that divine spark within us all. And know that we each carry the conditions of happiness and joy within ourselves. And we do know that unconditional love is possible. Before I close now, I want to share an experience I had a few months ago where Spirit gave me a beautiful word for a wonderful joy I was feeling. And I'm going to skip over the details of how that all occurred because I've spoken long enough today. But everything in the moment of the experience simply converged with joy, with an open heart, with that inner, as we talked about, that inner spiritual vision of clairvoyance, that clairaudience with your spiritual hearing, and clairsentience, that feeling, that inner spiritual feeling. And Spirit gave me the word clairjoyance, and that is exactly what it was. It was a beautiful experience where everything just aligned and came together in the most poignant way. And I've been blessed to experience that clairjoyance a few times since then. So may I leave you now with love, with gratitude to each of you and each of your beautiful spirits as we go forward at this time on our individual journeys and the journey we share together. And may the days and weeks ahead be filled with your well-being, with unity, with love, and clairjoyance. Thank you.